We made it. After walking verse by verse through Psalm 23, today we've reached the final verse. And I think that's fitting that David ends here because after telling us what it looks like to live with the Lord as our shepherd, he ends by telling us where this relationship ultimately leads. Home. Hi, I'm Shelley Junkin and welcome to the Rooted Tool Shed. Today we're looking at Psalm 23:6, our last verse in Psalm 23. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Let's start with that first word, surely. So that word is a word of confidence. David isn't saying, I sure hope God will still be faithful tomorrow. He has lived enough life with his shepherd to know his character. His confidence isn't based on knowing what's going to happen next. It's based on knowing who is going with him. And I think that's important because often we believe peace comes when God finally shows us what's ahead. He reveals the plan. That's what we're waiting for, right? But David doesn't know what's ahead. He knows his shepherd. And he's been one, so he can kind of parallel that. And that's just enough for him to say, surely, he understands it. Then he says, surely your goodness and love will follow me. Okay, so the word translated for follow is actually much stronger than it sounds in English. The Hebrew word carries the idea of pursuing or chasing after. So God's goodness and love aren't casually trailing somewhere behind David. No, they're pursuing him. And the word translated love is important too. The Hebrew word is hesed. I don't know if I said that quite right, but it's difficult to capture one English word, but it describes God's faithful, steadfast covenant love. This isn't a love that disappears when David has a bad day or takes a wrong turn. No, it's unconditional. It's rooted in the character of God. And David says that kind of goodness and that kind of love will pursue him all the days of my life. So notice he doesn't say just on my good days. He says all the days. He didn't have that great of a life. It wasn't easy. And Psalm 23 doesn't describe one. So he isn't saying because God is my shepherd, everything in my life will be good. He's saying whatever kind of day I'm walking through, the goodness and faithful love of my shepherd are still there. And I love that this includes the ordinary days too. You know, God doesn't only shepherd us through those big moments of our lives. So many people think he's not interested in our daily little pieces, but he's the shepherd of our ordinary Tuesdays. The days when we're tired and we're waiting or working, raising our family and just doing life. He isn't just occasional. It's all the days. It really means all the days. And then we come to those final words of Psalm 23, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Wow, we've talked throughout this entire series about the responsibility a shepherd has for his sheep. But his responsibility didn't end once he got them to the pasture. He didn't simply turn them loose and assume they'd find their way back, right? He didn't leave them standing at a distance with vague directions and wishing them luck to find the fold. No, the sheep followed their shepherd home. And David ends Psalm 23 with that same sense of security with his shepherd. There is a home at the end of this journey. And as followers of Jesus, we can understand that picture even more clearly. Jesus identified himself as our good shepherd. Remember in John 10:14, I am the good shepherd, I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. And then he tells us that the good shepherd lays his life down for the sheep. We've learned all that. Right? That was David talking about a shepherd, but then that's exactly what Jesus did, and that's where that parallel comes from. Our shepherd didn't simply show us the way to eternal life. He made that way possible through his death and resurrection. John 14 also tells us that his disciples, he told them that he was going to go and prepare a place for them. So now when I read, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, I hear something incredibly personal about that. My shepherd isn't only caring for me when I'm here, he's going to bring me home. Psalm 23:6 doesn't promise that every day will be easy. It just promises us something far more secure, and we have to hold on to that. God's goodness and faithful love will pursue us through every kind of day we encounter. And for those of us who belong to Jesus, even death cannot spare us from our shepherd. For the believer, death isn't the shepherd losing his sheep. It's our final step home. So maybe today you don't know exactly where your shepherd is leading you, and that's okay. The sheep doesn't need the map, and neither do we. They need the shepherd, and he knows the way. You guys, thank you for walking through Psalm 23 with me verse by verse. We finally made it. It seems like it's been a long time. But we're going to do one more video. I just want to do one video that kind of shares with you what I learned personally through the Psalm. It's taken me by surprise that I've known this for so long, but to finally land on this last verse and then going through all the other verses, it's just been so incredible. It's been so incredible to find how faithful our shepherd is and to be able to trust that I can follow him to those still waters. And I just want to share a little bit with you about what I've learned. I hope it's blessed you. And we are just going to hopefully together follow the shepherd because he knows the way and he's going to get us home. Stay rooted.